To comprehend or not comprehend? That is the question. How do we acquire knowledge? Repetition, noticing, comprehensible input. Noticing, comprehensible input. Repetition. It seems to be the same, just in a different order. What's next? Comprehensible input, repetition, noticing, it is the same. It is just a different order. That's because the order does not matter. You do notice, and you do have to have repetition. It is not strictly comprehensible input. Comprehensible input is part of the repetition. Comprehensible input is part of the noticing. And that they are all basically the same, or all pretty much equal. Study. You study to acquire knowledge? Yes, you do need to study. Trial and error and mistakes? We learn from mistakes. We learn from mistakes. But we're talking about acquiring knowledge. Oh, all of these apply to acquiring knowledge and to learning. Are they sure? Are you sure that they apply to acquiring? Why? We just listen like when we're a child to acquire knowledge, to acquire language. Not exactly true. It is still repetition, and you start noticing while you are acquiring. Your brain processes these things. To think otherwise is to say that the brain doesn't do much. So, let's ask another question. If you put information into a computer, what is the output? Is it what you're asking for? Why or why not? Is it because it's not comprehensible? Is it because it's just input and it spits out words? It needs to have meaning. So, comprehensible input. The same applies. You can't just, if a baby is putting out words and it's not comprehensible for the other, I guess comprehensible input does not amount to acquiring, because the parent or the grown-up needs to acquire what's also coming out of the child. All of these apply to conscious and subconscious. Noticing is subconscious? Yes, it is. Think about it. Are you going to tell me that you aren't necessarily driving down the road or reading a book and you see a difference between two words? You're not looking for it intentionally. Subconscious, you're not looking for it consciously. It happens. It just, you see out of your peripheral vision. It's the same thing happens for words. Okay? What about the spoken word? Yes, it even happens then. Singing, but somebody says singing. And you notice the G's not there. Subconsciously, you're not thinking about it, you notice it. Subconsciously, you notice the G is not there for singing, Does that mean it's a different word? No. Is that part of pronunciation, etc.? That is part of noticing. N+1. Oh, we know what this is, don't we? It's good and it's normal. True. Very true. But what is it then? It's limiting? How can N+1 be limiting? You just said it's good and normal. It needs further consideration? Remember, we're talking comprehensible input. So, it does need it. We go to school. First grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, N plus 1. We learn by adding a little bit extra. The purpose of this audio, this video, this podcast, it's to enlighten on language learning, foreign language or first language. It's to tell about comprehensible input. How is this possible that we're doing it? So comprehensible input should be fun. You should have joy. The N plus 1 should be fun and joy. I think so. In other words, it's not just for languages, but all learning. Steve Krasner's approach seems to focus on teaching. N plus 1, teaching. I agree. Especially second languages. Well, that was his forte. Second languages. But we need to think broader, not just second languages. And until we think broader, we limit ourselves. And that's a problem. If you want to have change, you need to evaluate everything, not just one item. There's a program in the United States and maybe over the world, 6 Sigma. It's a process of evaluation before implementation. The same happens for second languages, first languages, even teaching. So it focuses on teaching. What about the student? Do you teach the same way for every student? No. There are many, many programs by individuals on the internet for learning a second language, for acquiring a second language, for speaking a second language. The approaches vary. Why? Because the student is different. Okay, so we have a classroom environment. We have an individual learner. There's also N plus 1 applying to a new or transfer student. So you're in one school and you move to another, but you stayed in the exact same grade, possibly even going from 5th grade to 6th grade, but a new school. How does N plus 1 apply, even for a new language, a second language? You've studied Spanish all the time. So how does N plus 1 work in a school classroom? How does it work for an individual learner, especially an individual or a beginner, a new student? Many people are learning the languages on their own. How does N plus 1 start? Mano, hand. We have to think about it. Following is an example for both teaching and learning in a classroom environment. It applies to one student or multiple at the same time. It uses the class time, 1 hour. It is applicable to testing, both in the classroom and standardized test. The U.S. has standardized test. Why should we teach to a standardized test? Is this effective? Is this the best way to teach? How does this impact comprehensible input? Oh, it's all the same, so it has to be comprehensible? No, not true. Can teachers all teach in a way that it's comprehensible, that it's meaningful input? Can they teach in such a way that they, with the 1 hour that they're given per class, and get across to all students? The answer is yes. How? That is to be seen. Two students evaluate the following program. What is 3 times 9? Student A says 27. Student B does not know. Is it comprehensible? Why is it comprehensible? Why is it not comprehensible? Maybe student A learned it. Maybe student A knows it from repetition, from rote repetition. Does he really know it? So, if we change it to 9 times 3, is the answer the same? This is a word numerics. If we change it to words, is it going to be the same effect? The answer should be yes. However, the answer is no, because often word problems in the US are very difficult to understand. Again, comprehensible input needs to be evaluated even in this case. A pitcher strikes out 3 batters of each inning. How many strikeouts were there? A pitcher strikes out 3 batters of each inning. How many? Student A may not know the answer, but student B knows it's 27. What's the difference? Student B knows there's 9 innings. He knows there's 3. So it's comprehensible in this aspect. 3 times 9, but we don't have the word 9. So student A may or may not know. Is it comprehensible? The answer is yes. Next question, is it comprehensible to all? Not necessarily. A pitcher strikes out the first 3 batters of each inning. There are 9 innings. How many strikeouts were there? Both students know the answer. Have we changed the teaching? Have we changed the N+1? Have we changed comprehensible input? What have we changed? What have we done? Critical thinking? Is that the answer? Well, is critical thinking different from comprehensible? Again, the focus is on first the teaching method, then on the student. The objective is to teach the student to get across. So, a simple sentence, 2 sentences, strikes out 3. There are 9 innings. You've taught one student, student A, about baseball. Not everyone knows about baseball. It makes a difference. Now, student B, who did not know the answer before, he can relate. It's comprehensible to him. Follow on. A pitcher strikes out 3 batters of each inning. How many batters did the pitcher strike out? Student A says 27. Student B says 9. Who is correct? Okay. What do you think? Who's correct? One or both? Now we're getting into possibility of critical thinking, or you might say grammar. Student B says 9. Both students are correct. How can that be with 2 different answers? Oh, hints. They should provide an explanation. Standardized testing. Classroom testing. Does this change the way we teach? It teaches the person to think, but to explain, not just to give an answer. A multiple choice answer with an explanation is fine. So student A says that 3 times 9 for 27. Student B says 9. Well, the answer is 9 because there are only 9 people, say, on the team, or 9 batters. Substitute batters? Okay, let's bring in a substitute batter. The question asks how many batters, how many people did he strike out? There's 9 people on the team. Now we're starting to get into others. You might want to put in what ifs. You replace one of the batters in the third or fourth inning. We can always add these what ifs. So how does that come into teaching? We've still got 9 batters on the team. It might be a different 9 batters, but it's still 9 batters. A pitcher strikes out the first 3 batters of each inning. How many batters did the pitcher strike out? Student A says 27. Student B says 9. It seems to be the same question. $27, because there are 3 batters per inning and there are 9 innings, so 3 times 9 is 27. 9. Yes. This is the explanation from before. There are 3 batters per inning. After 3 batters, repeat. So 3 times 3 is 9. This means that each batter will bat 3 times for a total of 27 strikeouts. Oh, the pitcher strikes out. How many did he strike out? That's different. We're no longer saying how many batters, or how many batters did the pitcher strike out? What is the difference? How many batters? One word. How many batters did he strike out? How many batters did he strike out? No, they're the same. Now you have taught a principle of math to both students. What is the difference? Is this comprehensible? Yes, because both students understand. Student A acquired the knowledge with 3 times 9. Student B acquired it because of playing baseball as a child, not from going to the classroom. This is also learned. It introduces critical thinking. In the classroom environment, it takes no additional time. No additional time. On a standardized test, the student is better prepared because you can teach the 2 ways the correct way. In the real world, after college, after high school, when you become an adult, you don't take as many standardized tests. Why is it taught? Why is it necessary? Comprehensible input, acquiring. It does need to change. Thank you.